evening, everybody, and welcome to Pop Go the Writers. I'm Dan. That's Jim. And
That hasn't changed.
we don't know where the hell we are at this point. And I don't mean we, I know I'm in California. I know he's somewhere in Ohio. Um, but we were just talking before going on air that we don't remember talking about stuff like the Loki finale or the Marvels and stuff. So if we did, we're going to apologize because we're probably going to talk about it again. And if we didn't, then welcome to the conversation.
It'd be interesting if we did talk about it and we talk about it now and we say something completely different about it and someone calls us on it,
Yeah, like we loved it last time, and now we hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. What happened in the last, 3-4
Yeah.
weeks that things changed? So did anybody miss us?
That's a good question.
You didn't get letters or emails or anything like that, or
No.
okay.
But I've been a little busy. Lisa came to visit last Saturday and ended up staying through Thursday.
Okay.
So I was a little distracted for a few days.
Okay. Not necessarily a bad thing.
No. It was definitely not a bad thing. I had a lot of fun, and
Good.
which could, just could be while I'm tired.
Okay. All right. We're off to a good start here then.
No, she was. I gotta say, she was awesome when she came down because I've been dealing with the infection in the leg and stuff, and my mom is getting up there, and she came down, and my nephew came over, and they put up the Christmas tree and got all the decorating done while I made up. We didn't do normal Thanksgiving. We ended up doing it on Sunday.
Okay.
Because we had some people sick. Lisa wasn't able to come down till that weekend, and we did like ribs and coleslaw and just a big spread. And and that turned out pretty well. So that was our Sunday meal and decorate. And then Lisa went and did my mom's Christmas shopping for her, which made my mom very happy. And
I bet.
Yeah, so yeah, Lisa came down and kicked ass. Basically, she had a lot done. So
wow.
Yeah.
When you say come down, like how far does she have to travel?
We're about 75 miles apart.
Wow. Okay, that's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she lives up in the high desert, and I live just outside of LA.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a drive, but we've known each other. I think it's 37 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of weird in the sense that Lisa and I have known each other 37 years, and her and I have dated on and off in that time. I also dated on and off another girl, Debbie, who I married for a while, who I'm still friends with and talk to.
Right.
And they both come over for holidays and stuff.
Wow.
And then I still talk to just about every woman I ever dated.
Okay.
Including, people from high school I dated, and the lady who does my hair has been doing my hair since I was 15, and I still go to her. And
boy, when you form relationships, you really form relationships. Wow.
I do. Wow. Yeah. So I don't think you can accuse me of having a fear of commitment.
Right.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people who've been in my life a very long time, and
wow. All right.
So, and most of them are women. So that's kind of,
Have you and your nephew still been playing Warhammer?
We haven't had a chance to play recently. He ended up moving out, and he and his boyfriend got they bought a house together. So that's been his main focus.
Oh, pretty big focus there, sure.
Yeah, so they're getting adjusted to that, but they came over and they seem to be doing good. Speaking of Warhammer, though, I wanted to show this. Once a month, the Warhammer store, the Games Workshop store, gives away a free mini.
Right.
Figure. And last month, this was the free mini.
Nice. Very nice.
Space Marine, but they have this other line of game, which is I think it's called the Horus Heresy, and it's a different scale, and they call it Epic Scale.
Hmm.
And this weekend, and right now, so if there's a Warhammer store or Games Workshop, they go by both names.
Yeah.
Near you, you could probably still go get this. But they gave away what they call a Rhino, and it's like a little vehicle to carry the Marines out. So it's like an armored vehicle. Well, the ones for this scale are about this big. They're good
Right.
size, and
Right.
you can put these guys in there.
Right.
Well, this Epic Scale I hadn't seen yet, and I went down and ended up having to build the model there because they had some they had already built and they primered, and you could take one of those, or you could build one because basically they were opening a box and letting you take it off the sprue and make your own there.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between the Warhammer 40K scale. And remember, this is an armored vehicle that's supposed to have these guys in it. This is the Epic Scale.
Oh, I was expecting like bigger than
Yeah, when they say Epic Scale, you expect.
Yeah, I thought, okay, how much bigger and more spectacular can they get?
No, they went tiny.
There's marketing. We're going smaller and calling it epic.
And where you get what, on the same size base, you have 5 Marines on one base.
Well, they actually have figures for that little tiny vehicle.
Yeah, you don't build them; they're already solid. They're already made.
Yeah, I would
stick them on the base.
But you can't paint them, right? They'd be too small.
You can paint them, but you're gonna go blind.
I know. It'll be one of those brushes where it's like 2 hairs. Yeah, exactly. I used to have a brush like that when I did D&D miniatures, and that was to put the little dot of life in the eye.
Yeah, so that's the Epic Scale.
Jeez. Oh, that's funny.
And it looks cool, but it's like smaller than a Matchbox car.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What would you think that led to that line? Like, as far as what was their thinking? Do you think that they heard from people who said we want a smaller scale, or?
Well, I don't know enough about the history of Warhammer to know if this is a line they're returning to,
okay,
or if this is a brand new scale. But I could see from the point of view of convenience of being able to take an army, because you could put an entire army in a lunch pail.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, right.
Or just a little box or whatever. You could put an entire army where, you get these guys that are pretty big, and then you get some of the bigger figures, and they start getting bigger, the vehicles and stuff.
Yeah.
Where that's a freaking tank. That's basically an armored transport.
Right.
So you could have an entire army. Like I said, you could put into, you could have your whole army in like this size of a box.
I suppose that price is a consideration too, that you could build our whole armies for how much less than it would be for the regular figures.
Yeah. I mean, the box sets for these have a lot more in them.
Yeah, it's starting to make sense then. Okay.
Yeah, they almost feel like they would be board game pieces.
Yeah.
Where the other ones feel more like chess pieces.
Yeah. So you haven't seen there's different rules for them.
Oh yeah, every one of their games has a different set of rules, but they're similar enough that if you play one, you can figure out the other one pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Just the difference between 40K and Age of Sigmar, which is the fantasy version. There's different rules for that.
Okay.
And again, they're not hugely different, where if you understand one, you can learn the other one quickly.
Yeah.
but there are a different set of rules, and you can't necessarily cross them. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
like Lisa's building an army called Seraphim,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like lizard people who ride dinosaurs.
Makes complete sense.
Right, and that's Age of Sigmar, and the army I built is 40K, the
Yeah.
sci-fi version. Well, since I can't play her that way, I started building an Age of Sigmar group called the Slaves to Darkness,
Okay.
and they all look like they're just straight off the cover of a Dio album. Yeah, I mean,
I understand that reference.
Yeah,
I'd love to know how many people out there would get that reference. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so
that's
speaking
epic.
Yeah, speaking of Dio and rock, did you see that Kiss had their final concert last night?
Yeah, how many final concerts is this now?
This is well, I went to one of their final concerts back in like 2002.
So
I went when it was.
When I heard that, that's what I said. It's like, come on, like, okay, so they've had a final tour for each one of the lineups, right? Because there's been many lineups over the years.
It's kind of that way. It's Gene Simmons wanting more money.
Yeah. Who is this? Who is this final tour? Who is in the final tour? This
it's
time?
Gene and Paul.
Yeah.
Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer.
Okay. Eric Singer wasn't he was pretty early on, wasn't he?
He came in after what was the middle guy? There was Eric Carr. He came in after Eric Carr.
Oh, that's okay. You know what? I heard the name Eric, and that's what I was thinking of, Eric Carr, right? I think he was like one of the first sort of replacements.
Yeah, he replaced Peter Criss.
Okay. So
and he passed away.
Okay. Oh. I guess I don't remember. I didn't remember that. Peter Criss
Eric Carr passed away pretty young.
Okay. But Ace Frehley is still with us, right?
Ace, both Peter and Ace are still with us, and but there's been a falling out.
Wait, you just said Peter Criss died.
No, Eric Carr died.
Oh, okay. That's why I didn't hear it. Okay, Peter Criss is still alive, and
yeah, Peter Criss is still alive.
And he and Ace are done. They're not. They don't do Kiss stuff anymore.
No, there was a huge falling out with Gene and Paul. Gene pretty much treats them like hired help.
Okay.
And it's a lot of what the feedback I'm hearing from the concert is that it was very disrespectful to previous members. Because there was no, as they were saying their goodbyes and stuff, there was no thank you to any of the other band members who weren't there. They could have buried the hatchet and had Ace and Peter join them on stage for a song type of thing. They didn't. And then they did this thing where they got ILM to create these avatars, these computer digital versions of them. And they played this video of them playing God Gave Rock and Roll to You as the final thing in the show. So they left the stage and then they played this video basically saying, thanks to all your love and power, we have become immortal. And it's like, no. And, so they had these avatars or these CGI versions of them play God Gave Rock and Roll to You. And it just
did the avatars include Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, or
they were done as the Spaceman and the Catman?
Oh, because I'm assuming Gene owns those characters. Is that right? Oh, yeah. Wow.
So that's
still
why
a poke in the eye. Yeah.
Yeah. See, what I always thought interesting was when Peter Criss left and Eric Carr came in, he came up with his own makeup design. He was the Fox.
Yeah, I remember this now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he passed uh, basically they had the other guy come in and start using Peter's makeup,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of where I Kiss was the first band I ever recognized. I was a Kiss fan in the early 70s when I was like 6 and 7 years old, and I
Mm-hmm.
started collecting their albums and stuff at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park
Mm-hmm.
when that came out, and in elementary school, everybody talking about it. Oh my God, did you see it? Oh yeah, that was and I think we all recognized that was a really bad movie.
But
So
you
I
were
was
a Kiss fan, so you got everything, you watched everything.
exactly, and I mean, I had the puzzle. I had a Peter Criss puzzle I used to build when I was a kid. Peter Criss was my favorite,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and
That was the solo album you liked the best.
it was pretty good. But I think Ace Frehley's was the better solo album.
Hmm.
New York Groove is a really good song. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
when I was in
but Beth was a pretty good song.
that was not off the solo albums though. That was
I
off of
know.
one of the other albums.
I know.
What's
I
funny
heard
is
that the others didn't really want to do Beth, and then it became a big hit.
I actually tried out for a talent show singing Beth when I was 9 years old, 8 years old.
Oh my God! You have to have it on. You have to have that on tape or something, right? You
Oh,
have
that
to
was
have that
before
on
everybody
video.
had tape. This was 1978. Come on.
Okay, they had video cameras, didn't they? In
No.
'78.
Well,
I
this was
don't.
the tryout. What I ended up becoming the MC for the talent show. I got hired for that. So yeah, but again, so Kiss was a big part of my life, and I finally saw them in 2000 when it was the original lineup.
Oh, good for you.
So I got to see Peter and Ace and all them,
Yeah.
and so when they kind of unceremoniously kicked them out again, I was done,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started learning how to play bass guitar, and I started watching Gene Simmons play bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize as a bass player, he's a very good businessman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all really rudimentary stuff, right?
Yeah.
That they do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All the talent was Ace, Peter, and Paul's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene could sing, but yeah, he was a very basic bass player. And even if you don't know how to play bass, go to YouTube, bring up any Gene Simmons bass solo, and you'll see that he spends more time trying to work up the audience than
Sure.
he does actually playing.
Sure. That's called distraction.
Yeah,
Like,
he'll do one of
look
the
over
most.
here and realize that I don't really play the bass very well.
Yeah, he'll do one of the most basic licks you could do,
Uh-huh.
and then start raising his arms to get the crowd going, and then turn on like a John Entwistle bass solo or a Billy Sheehan bass solo, and you're like, that other guy in the makeup can't play at all.
Kiss is such. I mean, I admit it's a really fascinating thing to me, even though I was never a fan. I had a very good friend in high school who was just, he was one of the Kiss Army. It was everything. So I got anything I know through him. I mean, that was back when nobody supposedly knew what they really looked like. And like my friend would show me like the fan magazines, and there would be like a candid photo that somebody got, and it'd be kind of blurry or something would be kind of obscuring, and but they hung on to that mystique for a while of what they really looked like. But I mean, I gotta hand it to them. I mean, it was an incredible concept,
Yeah.
That they parlayed into the Marvel comics and action figures and puzzles and that TV movie where I watched that live. For some reason I think it was that old thing about we were so starved for anything that was remotely superhero, science fiction, or fantasy that we watched anything at all that was like that. And I remember at that point going, the hell, like, why is that guy like making bird noises?
Yep.
I couldn't figure it out. Like, I guess the Kiss fans understand this, but I watched it,
If we watch Peter Hammond as Spider-Man, Reb Brown as Captain America, and with the motorcycle helmet, and Peter Hooton as Doctor Strange, we would watch anything.
Yep, that's very, very, very true.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk meets Thor in the TV movie,
or the Trial of the Incredible Hulk with Rex Harrison as Daredevil.
Yep. You had to be there, you just had to.
I think anybody who complains about the Marvels should have to go back and watch Reb Brown with the motorcycle.
That's a really good point. Yeah, both TV movies, both Captain America TV movies. Yes. The one that had the outfit that looked pretty much like the comic books, and the one that had the outfit that didn't look anything. Yes. That would be like you have to watch the Kathy Lee Crosby Wonder Woman TV movie.
Yeah, or the pilot with the comedic pilot they did.
Oh yeah. That it's Linda Harrison plays the like the more serious Wonder Woman in The Mirror, and I can't think of the name of the girl that plays her otherwise in real life or whatever. But I mean, she didn't become anybody. Before I forget, how old is Gene Simmons these days?
Oh, good question. Let me pull that up.
So they're still doing like full makeup?
Yep. They were in full makeup last night. He's 74 years old.
Wow, and he still can do like those big gigantic platform boots and all of that. And wow. So Paul's got to be around that same age too then.
Paul's 71. Wow, I didn't realize Peter was older. Peter's 77. And Ace is 72. So a couple more years and those guys can run for president.
Well, I was about to say, Paul and Ringo are in their 80s, but then again, they're not wearing, Kiss makeup and costumes and doing all that stuff. But I mean, God loved the rock and roll lifestyle. You just do it until you fall over dead.
But in their defense, Gene and Paul still look like Gene and Paul. Paul McCartney now looks like Angela Lansbury.
Oh, stop. You're making me sick. Oh. Paul does need to stop singing. His voice is so not right anymore, but he doesn't know anything else. What would he do with himself? I don't know. I mean, I think he thinks that he will probably just drop over on stage, and that's probably how he wants it.
He could continue writing music for other people. He
could
produce songs.
Yeah, I get that, but I bet you he would just, he can't imagine not go. And Ringo's the same. It's like, the all-star band over and over and over again, practically every year. They had to stop because of COVID and everything. Right. But he's, they just announced a couple more dates somewhere, like in Mexico or whatever. It's like, God love him, But yeah, Barbara Bach really needs to put her foot down and say, "You're staying at home, Richie."
Yeah, at some point you got to know when to. I mean, Phil Collins finally called it, because he physically can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
and that's a shame. I mean,
I don't know how anybody can drum, in their 70s or 80s for that matter. I mean, Ringo has always had another drummer with him in the all-star band, and I suppose that guy probably does a lot more. But Ringo's still, drumming. He's still up there on stage doing it. So God love him. I can only imagine how many times has he had to have his rotator cuffs replaced?
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? I mean, you have to have strength in your arms to be constantly
But
doing that.
again, the advantage that Paul and Ringo have is that they really didn't have any talent in the first place, so it didn't really deteriorate that much.
Okay, well, so that's another episode. Thanks very much, and we will see you in 2 weeks. No, don't go there. You probably didn't like Now and Then.
It was okay.
Okay, yeah, I enjoyed it very much. It's certainly not. It's not Beatles in their heyday. You know how I imagined it? I imagined it would be. It looked very good that Paul, the four of them would get back together.
Yeah.
In 1980, John was really entertaining the idea before he was killed, and that's how I kind of imagine it. That John may have brought the cassette of that or played that when they sat down and maybe tried to say, "Hey, can we do a record?" So that's how I look at Now and Then. It's not Beatles in the 60s. It would have been Beatles in the early 80s.
Yeah. From what I understand is that he had recorded those with the band in mind, and Yoko found them and gave them to the rest of the band after he had passed or after he died. And they sat down with George Harrison and tried to record, and where they got another song they actually got to put out, but they didn't have the technology to clean up John's recording, and it was actually not Guillermo del Toro, Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson's technology, they used to get back.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I understand it, that this one for Now and Then, that the piano and vocals were so linked that they couldn't separate them back then, and they did Free as a Bird and Real Love, but they worked a little bit on Now and Then, and supposedly it was George who was very unhappy with it and just said it wasn't clear enough and didn't want to keep working on it. But what an amazing thing that the vocals are just crystal clear on it. It's just really, really, really amazing. I was rewatching a little bit of Get Back the other day and remembering how much I enjoyed watching that two years ago, I think it was.
I watched that documentary Peter Jackson did. Was that Get Back?
Yeah, that's the 3-parter. Yep.
Yeah. And absolutely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And I'm not a Beatles fan. And I think
I remember you saying that then. Yeah. And that's the power of that, like you really felt like you were in the room with them.
Yeah. I gained a lot more respect for them. And there are some bands like that because, their heydays was a little before my time.
Yeah.
Just like the Who was and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was learning to play that I started really understanding the Who and, what they could do. And the fact that the Who was basically 4 guys that could lead a band on their own.
Yeah.
All playing together. I mean, those are 4 amazing musicians. The Beatles were just an amazing union of people. And they very much weren't how I expected them to be. John was much more, I expected John to be much more aloof and detached. And he was much more into it and kind of the heart. And George Harrison seemed to be the one that was kind of on the outside, ready to walk away.
Yeah.
And, I think it was Paul was much more no, we have to, was the drill sergeant. And
Ringo has said that the reason that they had as many albums as they did was because of Paul. He said, they all just want to sit around in their gardens and relax, and the phone would ring and they'd go, oh crap, it's probably Paul again saying, let's go into the studio, mates and stuff like that. They said that he was the workaholic, and you can really see that in the documentary, that he's driving things along. And I love Ringo. Ringo pretty much just takes what comes. Like he's the rock of the group. that just sit back and, okay, whatever you want me to do on the drums, and I'm good with that. And not really, issuing an opinion very much.
That is, I think about the effect that had on me is the same that I get when I watch some of the behind the scenes footage on Blu-rays.
Hmm.
You watch a movie and you get a certain feeling from the movie,
Yeah.
but then you take the time to watch these behind the scenes stuff, and where you're like, oh, it's just a silly little movie or whatever.
Yeah.
You start hearing what these people really put into it, why they made certain choices,
Hmm.
their dedication to it and stuff like that, and you see it in a different light.
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
and I think maybe that's because like you, I'm a creator, and I can appreciate that process and what you go through, and not every choice is going to work, but you make the best choice you think you can, or what you think is the best choice, and that's what they do, and they try to make the best story possible or the best songs possible. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Totally
know,
agree.
but there have been movies that I was like so on, and then I watch the director's commentary, or I watch the behind the scenes footage or featurettes, and it gives me a new perspective on it, and
Hmm.
it makes me rethink my thoughts on a movie or a TV show.
Yeah, that's a good point because we tend to consume a lot of movies and television, and you watch something, and if it didn't really do anything for you, then you just move on to the next one, forgetting that all these productions are usually like almost a couple of years out of people's lives,
Oh yeah,
and who sat and worked on it, hundreds of people, and the hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and months and years that go into it, and then somebody watches it in 2 hours and goes, yeah, whatever, next one.
yeah. I mean, the Marvels. I mean, the Marvels for me is kind of funny because they've still got a good fan audience score,
Hmm.
but it's already out of the top 10 in its fourth week. It
Yeah.
hasn't. It just broke 80 million. It's going to
Mm.
be the lowest grossing Marvel movie, and I don't. Nobody on that movie set out to make a bad movie.
No.
They all made, they wrote the scripts, they directed, they filmed it, they cut it, they visual all that stuff. Every single person was trying to do the best job possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Bob Iger comes along and says, "Well, there wasn't enough executive supervision on it."
And what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, that's he said something else in the same interview, which I think is more important. He said that people are changing the way they view things, and this is something I've been talking about a lot lately. That people aren't, I'm going to give you my take on it, and it's just the same thing he said.
Okay.
Because of the access of streaming services and the fact that we're getting movies so much faster now,
Yeah.
that people are, and also we're coming out of a pandemic where
Yeah.
people weren't able to go to the movies. I think how people choose movies has changed, because it used to be Friday night, let's go to a movie. Okay, what do you want to see? I mean, do you remember as a kid or when we were younger and you had to call a number to get the times at a movie theater?
Yeah.
And then you'd list down like the 4 or 5 movies that you liked or you could go see, and then you call your buddy and you go, okay, these are the movies that are playing. These are the times. What one do you want to go to?
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal was to go to the movies.
Right.
And I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't think people go to the movies to go to the movies. They go to the movies to see a specific movie.
Yeah, I see. I'm seeing what you're saying. Yes. Yes. The theater going experience is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact is that, okay, the Marvels came out on November 10th.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance it's going to be on Disney Plus before Christmas.
Wow. Now,
or early January at the latest.
Okay, so do you know what the average time it takes for one of the Marvel Studios?
45 to 60 days.
Okay. Wow.
So probably it's going to be early to mid-January.
Okay.
But it's already dropped out of the top 10, like I said.
Yeah.
So there's not much more money to get out of the theatrical box office. All these other movies are coming out now and pushing it down. So they're going to put it on Disney Plus in hopes of getting viewerships, getting maybe some new signups, stuff like that. And I think that's going to be the thing. And Bob Iger talked about that, is that people are choosing to wait and see it at home if it's not something big. It's like the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing. That's no longer the norm, that we're going to have all these movies breaking $1 billion. It's going to be the rare thing. Marvel hasn't had a movie break $1 billion since I think Endgame. Spider-Man No Way Home could have, but that was also around pandemic time.
Yeah.
Guardians did 895 million.
Okay.
But nothing else has. And this is the first year that Disney has not had $1 billion movie since 2014, not counting the pandemic years.
So their strategy is going to be less is more, right? They're going to pull back on, and that's not necessarily a bad, if you can get some anticipation, built up where you go wow, it's been such a while since we've had a Marvel movie, and get people. I'm still working on, my old school habits, which is, of course, I'm going to go to the theater and see that. I don't go so much that I don't, the movie going experience is still something to me. I remember all the great times of going to see the big movies when I was a kid, and yeah, we don't have ushers anymore. I actually still have some very faint memories of there being ushers in theaters, but always going to the movies with my dad, and they were huge. The theaters, there was a couple in Toledo where it was just immense. The screen was so big it curved. And so I remember when people used to say to me, I don't like going to that theater because you can see that the screen kind of curves. It's so big. It's no, it's got to be that big. It's got to be gigantic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember going to drive-ins. I remember going to, when new theaters would be built, and it's this brand new theater. Mm-hmm. And then, 5 years later, that was the old theater.
Yeah.
Well, I remember watching Predator in the theater and having an audience, and the scene where the guy's firing the big Gatling gun, and it runs out of bullets, and it's just spinning for for a few seconds, and then he finally stops, and the theater was completely quiet, and I'm in the back row, and I go, I'm empty. And you hear this ripple effect of laughter. I'm like, yay, I made everybody laugh. But those were the things that you could do in a theater. And nowadays it's just everybody's on their phones.
Yep, it's true.
It's just
I just went to see Godzilla -1, and yes, there were people on their phone or talking or whatever, and I know it's not the same. I mean, again, I'll go to the theater as long as I possibly can, but I kind of miss the days where you'd go to see the big new big movie, and you'd be in a theater full of people, and everybody would laugh when there was something that was funny, or everybody would maybe like applaud in the middle of the movie,
Yeah.
because they were like Raiders of the Lost Ark, yeah.
Even not that long ago, think of Endgame.
Yeah.
Cap gets the hammer.
Yeah.
People went crazy.
That's probably the last movie that I remember seeing where people really reacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just a few minutes later, On Your Left.
Yeah.
And that scene
and how quiet it was. You could hear a pin drop at that point.
Yeah.
So at this point, is Marvel's considered a flop?
I don't know, because I think if you mix in its international box office, it made its money back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know what considered a flop anymore, because it's done better than Napoleon, Killers of the Flower Moon, Silent Night, all these different movies that are coming out that were supposed, are cinema, and they're doing worse. The box office this weekend, the top movie at the box office is Beyonce's new movie, and it made $22 million. That's a low box office for a movie debut.
I heard Godzilla Minus One made like $4 million or something like that.
I think it was higher than that.
Okay, whatever it is, I know that the Toho is probably very happy, because that's probably like huge money. Sending that movie overseas and getting that many more millions of dollars is probably great for that. I was hearing about how much that costs to make, and it's almost laughable compared to what a Marvel Studios movie takes to make.
Godzilla Minus One came in third place with $11 million.
Oh, okay. That's even better than I thought.
Hunger Games, Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes was second with 14.5, and that was in its second week. And then we had two animated movies kind of wrapping up the top five. Trolls Band Together made $7.6 million. And then Disney's Wish made $7.4 million. And I think you got to consider that a bomb, or a flop, because Disney animated movies usually do great. And that one in its second week is making less than Trolls Band Together, which is in its third week. That's a completely different studio.
As far as the Marvels go, are you figuring that the idea that it's a chick flick, and by that I mean it's like an almost all female cast, had something to do with it?
Yes and no. I think that there has been so much negativity online that it's caused people not to go see it. And I think a lot of that negativity was driven by the people that don't want female-led movies, the chick flick thing. But, you look at every headline, and it's a negative headline towards that movie. They don't talk about the fact that, like I said, it has a good Rotten Tomato audience score. It's got the X-Men cameo. It's got a Young Avengers cameo or a setup. It's
also a fun movie too.
Yeah. And it used to be that would be enough to get people to go see it, the fact that it's a fun movie. But you're also coming off of just a series of lackluster superhero films, because, not only, Quantumania got a lot of negativity. Guardians did well, but you've got The Flash, Black Adam, Shazam 2, all of which were negatively received.
See,
Blue Beetle.
It's DC that's dragging everything down, right?
Yeah, I mean, people are burned out on it.
Yeah,
I saw a headline about Aquaman 2 and how that's going to be a major flop.
I can
Well,
and I can see that too.
yeah, but the thing is that it's tracking to open around 60 million. You know how much the first one opened for?
Mm-mm.
67 million.
Mm.
People saw it, told their friends about it, and that's where it jumped to 130 million in the first week. It doubled during the week its opening, and that's how it made $1 billion. It's the highest grossing. The first one was the highest grossing DC film. Period. And it's because people went and saw it and liked it. But there's, it's just nowadays that anytime a superhero movie comes out, there's this negative connotation to all the headlines.
And I don't know for what really, that's a shame. It's a real shame. I'm still enjoying these movies, and no, they're not of the caliber of Infinity War and Endgame. And I knew that was going to be a height that once they scaled that we wouldn't really reach that height again.
Yeah.
Because how could you? That was the swan song, for Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., who'd been carrying this massive thing for a while. And
yeah, but you've also got to keep in mind that a lot of what worked in phases 1, 2, and 3 were happy accidents.
Yeah.
They didn't know Thanos was going to be the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
Joss Whedon threw him at the end of Avengers on a lark. There was no plan. There was no Infinity Stones at that point. Mm-hmm. Then they started connecting the dots, and where we are right now, it feels like we're further because of the number of movies and shows we have. But story-wise, we're only in the dark Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 3 era age, that part of the first set.
Yeah.
We're in the beginning of stage of phase 5.
Yeah.
They just hired Michael Waldron to write Avengers Kang Dynasty. He's the co-creator of Loki. And he wrote the script for Multiverse of Madness. He's writing Secret Wars. So they bumped Jeff Loveness off, and they put him in for Kang Dynasty as well.
Okay.
There's no word that they're getting rid of the Kang storyline. All of that talk out there.
I never thought that they would. We're too far down that road. There's not a tomato. Is there a tomato score for TV shows?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's Loki sitting at Loki season 2. What's it sitting at right now?
Let's find out. I know it was well received.
Yeah, that's my impression. I think it's probably been one of the better received Marvel things in period of a while.
Damn pop-up ads. Okay, Loki is currently sitting at 87% critic review, 86% audience score.
Okay, wow, pretty even there.
Yeah. Oddly enough, season 1 has a higher rating than season 2.
I can see that. That doesn't really surprise me.
See, I'm the other way around. I actually like season 2 better.
As much as I like season 2, I think I'm still giving the edge to season 1. And mostly because it was new at that time, but also I think I feel like I said this before, maybe. Loki season 2 became an ensemble piece, except at the very, very end, where season 1 was really at least it was Loki and Sylvie. I think Sylvie took too much of a backseat in season 2. I didn't really get what I really wanted, maybe, from the character or her interaction with Loki. I think I liked that sort of budding romance that was happening, in season 1. And honestly, I don't think that there was a whole lot of movement with Mobius too. And it was I think maybe when they brought in new characters, and that kind of overshadowed the existing characters in some ways. Victor Timely and Brad, and then Miss Minutes really becoming something of an online, superstar kind of a thing. But that said, I mean, I still really liked Loki season 2, but I think I have to give the edge to season 1.
Well, most people seem to agree. The scores for season 1 was 92% critic score, 90% audience score, whereas season 2 was 82% critic score and 81% audience score. So there was about a 10% drop.
Okay.
But those are still really good scores.
Yeah. Were you happy with the final episode? Did you like what he becomes and all of that?
I almost want to reserve judgment.
Okay.
Because I want to know what's going to happen next. I think everything up to that moment I thought was brilliant. I loved the inclusion of Ouroboros. I thought the timing on the episodes were so good. The little things like him throwing the book over his shoulder and Loki catching it, and some of the Easter eggs in there. Like if you look in Ouroboros's workshop, when it's him on the timeline, he's got Short Round's hat in the background. He's wearing a thing on his belt. That's the same thing that he wore in the Goonies. So there's little things like that.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought the dialogue was really good. I loved the 5th episode and just what Loki goes through trying to save everybody. The fact that he goes centuries trying to save people.
Yes. Well, I think it's just funny that it's like, well, how long would it take to learn all that stuff? Centuries. And then it says centuries later.
Yeah. I thought they did all of that very well. I love the fact that they do like every form of time travel you can do.
Yeah.
And I do like him sacrificing himself. I just wish it would have been a little clearer.
That is a point. Yeah.
Because it's still very kind of vague what he did.
Yeah.
And this is going to be completely me. I'm going to be the only one. The loafers without socks that he's wearing as he steps into the void just bugged the fuck out of me. Put him in boots. Put him in. What's with the loafers? I just don't
that's
know.
The worst problem that you have, then you're doing okay.
Totally
it is a look. It's a design choice, but it fits that outfit. And from what I understand, that outfit is almost straight from the one of the series, Loki series.
Loki, Agent of Asgard, or Agent of whatever.
My question or concern is that where could you go at this point? Loki is so high up now and detached. I mean, obviously he's controlling the stories or whatever, but he's so far removed. That's what I meant to say, from everybody. It's like, how could he possibly interact with in any other story or production where he is now, unless he kind of somehow stays or leaves that. If that's so, then we might get robbed of ever having him be reunited with his brother. Like, I don't know, like Thor would have to go there, wherever that is that
Mhm.
Loki is, and it, I mean, I guess I could see more or less a cameo with Hiddleston and somebody, and hopefully Thor, in one of the bigger movies coming up, going to see him, having an audience with him, but other than that, I can't. It's like a Loki season 3. I don't know what that would be or could be, for that
I don't
matter.
think they're going to do a Loki season 3, and
I
I think we're
see, I
getting
don't
close.
see it. Yeah,
I think we're getting close to the end for Tom Hiddleston,
yeah.
but I can totally see how he plays a role going forward,
Okay.
because Kang Dynasty, I think, will take Kang that we've seen so far and up him, the Kang Council of Kangs and all that, to
Yeah.
the point where he becomes a threat and build basically his army to take over control again of all the multiverses. And I
Okay.
think Loki is going to have to step down from his throne and put an army together of heroes from various multiverses
Hmm.
to combat Kang, and that'll be Secret Wars. So you'll have the X-Men from one universe, and you'll have the Avengers and his brother and stuff. And then I think that'll lead to a moment of Thor and his brother at the end, and Thor seeing how his brother has sacrificed. And you can have that touching moment, and then you can close the door on Thor after all this time, or on Loki
And
after all this.
Loki, yeah. I'd almost go so far as to say, like Hiddleston could stop at this point. I mean, that's a hell of an ending.
It is, but I think he's going to be the other force behind Secret
Like,
Wars.
okay, that's making some sense to me. But and then that could be like his Robert Downey Jr. moment, as
Yeah,
far as or Chris Evans for that matter, for
yeah.
ending. Hey, a long while back, supposedly Chris Evans was in talks about doing something with Marvel. What do you think that was? Because that's been kind of a while now.
Um, it may be showing up in the new Captain America movie as Old Man Evans, or playing some kind of role like that. I
Oh,
don't think he's coming back as young Steve Rogers.
yeah.
And if we, all the talk about Robert Downey Jr. coming back, there's a Vanity Fair article that just ran this week that talks about Robert Downey Jr., and it has a quote from Kevin Feige about the idea of bringing Robert Downey Jr. back. And he says, I've got it here. Uh, we are going to keep that moment and not touch that moment again. We all worked very hard for many years to get that, and we would never want to magically undo it in any way.
I agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree with him. Evans, I can see doing
Uh-huh.
still something with, and they played around with that whole thing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier about not coming out and saying that Steve is dead,
Yeah.
so that maybe they could do so. He's on the moon, and that whole
Right.
thing. I could
Now,
see that, but yeah, never ever. I mean, maybe not even like another recorded message from him or a hologram or something. I know they had that storyline where there was like a hologram Tony Stark that like was in the armor, except it was like an AI of him. He was supposedly dead or whatever.
yeah.
But if I
Yeah.
was if I was Robert Downey Jr., I would just say no. I mean, yeah, exactly what Kevin Feige said. We put everything into that, and that's that.
They had an interesting thing happen on Endgame in that they went and they filmed everything, and that was their final moment. They wrapped with that because emotionally they didn't want to do that and then have to come back and play the characters later.
Yeah.
They wanted that to be the goodbye, but they needed to do ADR. They needed to do some voice re-recordings, and Robert was real hesitant to come back for that because in his mind he had shut the door.
Yeah.
And what they finally said, the Russo brothers said, well, we're going to be recording it here at this one specific place, which is directly across the street from where you did your screenplay or your screen test to be Iron Man. So in a way, it's the perfect ending. You come in, you record the character, you're not taken away from that moment, and you're closing the book exactly where it began.
That was a clever way to put it.
Yeah.
But he's also a professional. I mean, he has to be able to do what needs to be done, kind of.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's kind of at a point where it's not like when he took the job, he was kind of making a comeback. You know, people weren't looking to hire him. He had done Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and that was about it.
Yeah.
He was still, you know, toxic in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And now he's kind of past that. He can do whatever he wants. You know, he's become bankable. And, yeah, and I think it's because not only how he's been on the screen, but also off the screen. So.
Yeah, I will always admire him for his great belief in the Marvel movies and being with them for all that time, you know, and always being excited about it and always being consistent with how he played Tony Stark and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he really was the core of that whole thing.
He never phoned it in.
No, never. Even when it, you know, whatever, he was in the Spider-Man movie or, you know, or whatever. Nope, never, ever. And you know what? Maybe that is another part of what's, you know, we're missing. We don't have a Robert Downey Jr. in these films. We don't really have that. I don't know who, and this is me still enjoying these movies. I don't know who is the through line, the core of it all right now. They're really.
I think we had that in Chadwick Boseman.
Okay.
Potentially. And I think we have something similar with Benedict Cumberbatch. But it's still Robert Downey Jr. Just, you know, I could see why there's so many rumors about him coming back because he was the heart of, you know, as much as I miss Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson, you know, and the original Avengers lineup, and would love to see that once again.
Yeah,
I don't want to see it because I feel that the story has been told and they've moved on. You know, and I'm ready for them to move on.
Yep.
You know?
I can only agree. Yep. As much as like a part of me would want that. I know that it would never be the same, and it would probably be pretty much a disaster if it was attempted.
Yeah.
You know? And because it's only all going to get compared to the way it was, you know.
Yeah, Triple B says exactly where can we go? Yeah. I think it's, and I think that maybe also a lot of where the negativity comes from is that people still want those characters and they're not ready to move on. And in comics, you don't have to move on.
No.
You know, we can just come up with a story of why they come back. But, you know, Robert Downey Jr. is now much older. You know, he doesn't want to play Iron Man again.
Watch what you say. He's my age.
Right, yeah, but to play an action hero.
I totally get it. I totally get it. Well, we were just talking about, 80 something rock and rollers, right?
Yeah, and I know that Liam Neeson's still doing action movies,
Yeah,
but
I know, that's
yeah,
crazy.
but they're cutting the hell out of him, so it looks like he's climbing a fence, and he's not climbing a fence.
Wait a minute. Here, you got to go to the main man here. Harrison Ford still doing action movies. God love him. I'm so excited to watch Dial of Destiny again when it lands on
It's
Disney.
on Disney Plus now. It dropped on December 1st.
Oh, was it the first? Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah,
I have to work out some time to watch that
yeah, I need to
again.
watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but
Okay,
I've only been to one. I've only been to the theater once this year, but that's because been the health and stuff, and
sure.
and that was for Quantum Mania, which I still love that movie. I like that movie. The scene where I am going to be in love with that movie just simply for Hank Pym walking in with an army of ants, army of giant ants. That moment, he's got the long coat on, and he's like, "Sorry, I'm late," and I'm like, "Mwah, perfect," because I grew up and Hank Pym was a hero to me. He was one of
Yeah.
my favorite Avengers, and I loved Yellow Jacket, and so
I love that he was in that movie far more than I imagined, he would be. I had
yeah,
no idea that he'd be in it that much and be that much of a main character in it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like that movie too. I still wish they would have stuck with the original ending where that they were, trapped in there. I know
yeah,
why. I get that, but even up to the, very last moment before Cassie comes back, I thought, okay, this is interesting. Okay, they're going to do this.
yeah.
That's they probably still should have done that, but I get it. Totally understand why.
No, I agree with you. Um, and I think that would have changed a lot of people's opinions on the movie too.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, I still love the first one, and the de aging they did on Michael Douglas was so good.
Oh yeah, I've enjoyed all three
Yeah,
Ant-Man movies. It's just the third one was just different. It wasn't like a heist movie. It wasn't like a ground level. I
I,
get
I
it.
think I think we're going to end up. I think people are going to end up liking these movies in retrospect a lot better.
Yeah,
And you always know Kevin Feige finds a way to revitalize these things. I mean, people are talking about Thor: The Dark World in a better light nowadays.
yeah. I'd like to offer that the next Captain America movie could potentially be big.
Yeah.
I have a feeling for that one, that's going to really help, put some juice into the franchise.
Yep. I think you're right. And I think having Harrison Ford was a great, if you have to replace William Hurt, Harrison Ford is not a bad choice.
If you can get Harrison Ford, then do it.
Oh, if you think about the few times they've had to replace people, it does feel like upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Ruffalo for Ed Norton, Don
Mm-hmm.
Cheadle for Terrence Howard, Harrison
Don
Ford for
Cheadle.
William Hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a downgrade, you know. So,
Yeah.
all
No.
right, dude, we're a little bit over now, so
I
I should
just hope
probably
I
wrap
can
it up.
go to it in that. I don't want to look at him as Harrison Ford in that movie. I want to look at him as, Thunderbolt Ross, but
Well, as long as he's got the big mustache, we should be okay.
okay. Here, here.
Because that's the character is the mustache.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like Henry Cavill in the Mission Impossible movies.
Mm-hmm.
When he shows up with that giant mustache, he's not Superman. He's just an asshole with a big mustache.
Right.
So I think that's going to be the same thing with Harrison Ford. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next week. I will be on the Dan Wickline show during the week. And next week, we should probably talk about the Doctor Who specials.
Are we doing the every 2 weeks still, or are we doing next week?
Oh, that's right. That's right. We're going to go every 2 weeks through December.
Yeah, so we're looking at the 17th.
Right.
And then the 2 weeks after that is the 31st. So I don't, I don't care. I mean, that's New Year's Eve. I don't do anything, but I don't know.
I will have plans.
Okay, that's fine with me. We could go the week after that if
You want to do that, or you want to just do 2 weeks in a row and then take the last 2 weeks off?
Oh, well, hold on a second. So you're saying do the 10th and the 17th, and then take the 24th and 31st off?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Okay, guys. So that's our schedule. We're going to do the next 2 weeks of Sundays, and then we're going to take the last 2 weeks off for the holidays and stuff because of New Year's Eve and
a little look
Christmas
behind
Eve.
the curtain there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on our
back in the new
schedule
year.
online.
Yep. But in the new year, we'll have What If to talk about.
Yeah.
I will talk about the new Reacher season because I love some Jack Reacher. That's already been renewed for a third season, and the second season hasn't even debuted yet. So if you haven't watched Reacher, you should. It's an amazing series.
Let's try to remember to get a little bit about Monarch Legacy of Monsters in.
Okay, I haven't watched that, but we'll try.
Okay.
I'm
one episode behind.
Is that on Apple or is that on Paramount?
Apple.
Then you'll be talking about that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say a few words about it. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I'll say a few things about it.
Okay. By the way, the de-aging of Kurt Russell is beautiful down to Wyatt Russell.
It's amazing. It's mind-blowing.
As Kevin Smith says, it's Jeff's kiss. He misspoke once during a podcast, called it Jeff's kiss instead of Chef's kiss, and it stuck.
Who's Jeff? That's what I would have said.
Who knows? But he seems to be the judge of all that is good.
Okay. And you know what? But if I remember to it, I could say a few words about Doctor Who, because we've got two of the specials. Well, by next week we'll have the third special done.
I'm going to try to watch those as well.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of David Tennant, but also the fact that Wilfred shows up.
Yeah, that was just.
I kind of have to watch it now.
Yesterday's episode. Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Wilfred.
So next Saturday will be the third special, and then we don't get the Christmas special until Christmas Day.
Well, that's good, because if we got the Christmas special early, that doesn't seem like it's a Christmas special.
I totally agree.
Yes. So, all right, we're just rambling now. So, say good night, Jim.
Good night, Jim.
Everybody have a great time. We will see you on Sunday. Take care.